ESPN presents the best of sports look, with the personalities and cover stories making news in the world of sports. Now here's your host, Roy Firestone.
Hello, everybody. They have been a diverse, eclectic lot, the select group of men who have governed the game of baseball. A governor, for example, is exactly what Happy Chandler was in the state of Kentucky before becoming commissioner during the Jackie Robinson era. Kennesaw Mountain Landis, he was a judge. Judge Landis, they called him, when he presided during the Ruth era, the golden age of sports. William Eckert was nicknamed Spike. He'd been a real live general in the U.S. Armed Forces. There was Ford Frick, who'd been a sports writer before taking the helm around the time the New York Yankees were baseball's version of General Motors. More recently, of course, Bowie Kuhn, a corporate attorney whose buttoned-up exterior belied the warm, gracious man inside the suit, and then Peter Ueberroth, Peter the Great, a technocrat perhaps, but also a shrewd businessman who turned baseball's bottom line from red to black. This brings us now to the next commissioner of America's pastime, the man who will follow Peter Ueberroth. He is A. Bartlett Giamatti, currently the president of the National League, formerly the president of Yale University, a man whose love of the Boston Red Sox exceeded only by his passion for the game itself. We will talk to Bartlett Giamatti about being baseball commissioner and his love for the game today on Sports Look. Then we'll be followed by Robert Rieger with some still life, and there was lots of life at Dodger Stadium last night. The moments, they were incredible. An incredible National League Championship Series Game 1. First, here is Bartlett Giamatti. Good to see you again.
Sure. Nice to see you, Roy.
We have discussed the fact that you are somewhat of an expert on heartbreak. I've heard it said that a Chicago Cubs fan is 40% baseball fan, 60% scar tissue. They could say the same thing about a Red Sox fan, and you are a Red Sox fan. With that in mind, what would you say to comfort the suffering Dodger fan this afternoon?
I would say that the wonderful thing about baseball is that the gates open the next day. The sun comes up, more or less. The gates open. You start afresh. The slate is clean. There's always history. There's pain. There's the fall of man is enacted occasionally over and over, but it doesn't mean anything beginning tonight. It'll be a whole new start. This is a quintessentially American point of view. I mean, Emerson and Thoreau, the star that is the morning star. Americans believe that you can begin again and again and again, and baseball enacts that capacity for renewal. So that's the hard-won, bitter wisdom.
We will recount through pictures. We'll also see some later, too, from Robert Rieger, some of the moments in last night's game. With the pitcher's duel, first of all, an incredible pitcher's duel. There's Doc, and you'll, of course, see Hershiser.
Right. You're
sitting in the stands. Take me through what you're feeling as you're watching the game.
Well, you really had the sense that there were two superb pitchers at the top of their game. I must say, I kept thinking about what a difficult job Harry Wendelstedt had behind the plate when you have two pitchers doing their best. It was the classic duel where the hits were not infrequent but sprayed, and the pitchers were just totally different styles, overwhelming.
Came 2-1 then in the ninth inning. They finally got to Hershiser. They broke through, breaking the streak.
Yeah.
And then the drama. There's Strawberry with the double.
A very tough, great classic matchup between a pitcher who had by this time pitched, I think, about 68 scoreless innings, if you will, and the league's leading home run hitter this year. And then
there's Shelby
double.
trying to make the catch.
Yeah. It was an extraordinary moment because he did the right thing. It was a wonderful effort. And then there was that moment where you kind of get your gyroscope set again and wonder where everybody's gone. And then, of course, McReynolds and Socha in another kind of classic baseball confrontation. Extraordinary reversal.
You know what was interesting for me? I was not at the game last night. I was in New York for a benefit for the Miami Project to help cure paralysis. And I was at an airport, and they put the ball game on at the Kennedy Airport for all the Met fans, and the place went berserk.
Oh, yeah,
but before I went to the airport, I interviewed a very interesting baseball fan by the name of Richard Nixon.
Oh, really?
About the job of being baseball commissioner. Once upon a time, he was asked to be commissioner. Here's what former President Nixon said.
Well, interestingly enough, when I lost the election in 1960, I went to California, and Del Webb, who was then the head of the Yankees, and they were looking for a new commissioner, and he came out to see me and said, would you mind if I put your name in as for commissioner? Well, seriously, I did think about it a great deal. I think it would have been the greatest life that anybody could possibly have. But finally, I decided on staying in the political world, and I know there's no way you can be commissioner and also be in politics.
Maybe president of Yale, but maybe not president.
Yeah, president of Yale will work, but not for politics.
He was the 12th president of Yale, Mr. Giamatti. You once said, though, that you would have much preferred to have been the president of the American League than any other job in the world.
Well, what I said was, when asked by a student journalist in the middle 70s if I were going to be president of Yale or if I were a candidate, that the only presidency I'd ever wanted in my life was the presidency of the American League, which is clearly the only job I will never have in baseball that I would have ever wanted.
The conflict, of course, at some point during your tenure will come when you have to make a decision involving your beloved Red Sox, and people always ask about objectivity.
Well, but you know, you have billed me as this passionate Red Sox fan, and it's not inappropriate, but I have no qualms about, frankly, being able to be even-handed. I think it's absolutely essential, frankly. That first of those remarkable faces you showed in terms of the 7 commissioners of baseball, Judge Landis's face set the tone for the focus of the commissioner's job, which really is, I think, in every sense of the word, to worry about the integrity of the game, the authenticity, the honesty, the coherence, the minimal gap, if you will, between what it says it is and what it is. I mean, there's a gap in all of things in life between what you'd like and what you have. But I think that's the heart and soul of the commissioner's job. Landis really put that stamp on it at a time when baseball was, well, was in the process of killing itself off. I think, therefore, that's a very serious obligation. And while one will retain all kinds of local passions, perhaps, they will not get in the way of the job.
In Cincinnati, the All-Star break this year, we spoke to Peter Ueberroth, outgoing commissioner, about the job and if he was happy that he took the job once upon a time. Here's what Peter said.
I'm glad. I didn't ever expect. I figured that baseball is so much ingrained in our society that I wouldn't find such problems. But it had been neglected. Nobody's fault, not my predecessor. The process needed so much. And I think that I was a great transition commissioner. It's on a good track now. It is going, I mean, it is doing, when Cleveland does 71,000 people in a regular season game, you know that it's time to move on. I mean, it is going very well, and it's time for somebody that can hold it on an even keel.
He got out while the going was good, some claim. What about that, that all the real challenges and the real trouble lies ahead?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think that you could probably have said of any new commissioner's time that there were major issues, major problems, whether they were in the 20s in the aftermath of the Black Sox, whether they were during the Depression, whether it was bringing baseball out of the Second World War, whether it was accommodating itself to the period of national upheaval in the 60s, or whether it was Peter Ueberroth's own particular moment, which had in it both a moral, social dimension insofar as drugs and other matters, and a fiscal. Sure, there's always going to be a new problem because there's always going to be a challenge that somebody hasn't quite resolved yet. But I'm not sure that it's more problem-ridden than any other point in history. We always tend to think that when we is the most afflicted time, because we are the most sensitive and morally capacious, and we'll solve it. I mean, that's a normal instinct.
Incidentally, I think I said before he was the 12th president of Yale. He was actually the 19th president of Yale, but the youngest in 200 years, the 12th president of the National League, Bartlett Giamatti. And the job ain't over yet. He's still got the rest of this year and all of next year, too.
Just remember that.
Yeah, we'll come back with more. We'll also take a look at some of his poetry, some fine poetry from Bartlett Giamatti, right after this.
What is your perception of life?
My perception of the meaning of you know, I mean, the meaning of life is answer the phone when it rings.
There was something very profound about what he said and very simplistic.
I missed it. What would he say?
I forget. I tried to write lyrics to a song once.
Yeah. Happy birthday was already done, though, right?
If I had to have another mom, I'd want a marsupial.
For a mom?
Yeah.
Levi's 100% cotton Dockers. If you're not wearing Dockers, you're just wearing pants.
My mom's one of those people, when you go to a restaurant, she asks for the table by the TV, you know.
G.E. is light. When you think of all the things your eyes have to do every waking hour of every day, it's good to know the GE Soft White Light is easy on your eyes. It's a soft, warm, glowing light. The GE Soft White, a light so remarkable, it's sensitive to the needs of the human eye.
GE is light. We bring good things to life.
When does a good quarterback make a great receiver? When someone who's been drinking passes him their car keys. Nice pass. If you've been drinking, pass your car keys to someone who hasn't.
Know when to say when. A message from Anheuser-Busch.
ESPN presents 10 years of memorable moments and the people who made them possible. Plus, we'll pick the team, event, and athlete of the decade on a 10th anniversary special. Friday night at 8 Eastern on ESPN.
Guests on Sports Look receive Franklin's Language Master, world's only dictionary, thesaurus and phonetic spelling corrector. All words by Merriam-Webster. From Franklin, first in electronic reference.
Bart Giamatti was a full professor at age 33. He is also a member of the American Philosophical Society, a scholar in Renaissance literature, wrote several magazine pieces, one for Harper's Magazine, Tom Seaver's Farewell, that was 11 years ago, Green Fields of the Mind, A Magic Game, An End to Innocence, and on it goes. He's our guest on Sports League. He also happens to be the president of the National League. Poetry, the words that affect the human heart have always appealed to you. I want to discuss, though, for a few moments.
That was my life. I mean, that's what I did for a living.
Right,
I mean, it appealed to me in the sense that if I knew about anything, that's what I thought I knew about.
But I want to discuss your relationship with your dad. There was a wonderful piece in the New Yorker magazine written by Roger Angell, maybe the best baseball writer this country has to offer. And he quoted you as saying, one of your great regrets in life was never having asked your father what the game of baseball meant to him.
Yeah, I remember saying that to Roger. What I meant was that I had never asked him whether or not, as the child of people who had come to this country from Italy, and as someone who really, I think he once told me, learned to speak English when he went to grammar school. So he grew up in a first-generation immigrant home. What baseball, because he was a baseball fan, he did teach me how to play baseball. I can remember when he gave me my first baseball glove. This was important to him, as it was to me. I never really finally asked him, was your interest in and love for baseball part of a sense of what it meant to become an American? Because it is documented, after all, that throughout the end of the 19th century, from the 1880s through the 1920s, when the great waves of immigration were coming to this country, was also the great fluorescence of baseball, the 80s and 90s, and then, of course, right up through the war. And they went together in the sense that this newly arrived immigrant often found that the way to become part of this new culture, this new society, was to learn this new game. Jacques Barzun, the great scholar and provost at Columbia, is tired of hearing himself quoted as saying, if you want to understand America, you must understand baseball. But that's, of course, part of the point. And my regret was, among many, was that I never really asked my father the extent to which, as a kid in New Haven, Connecticut, watching the Yankees come through on a barnstorming tour and watching Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig throw the ball to each other across the New Haven green, all these memories he had, to what extent as a young Italian-American, that somehow was a way of assimilating and accommodating this culture? I think it probably was.
You, though, made your feelings known many, many times in print.
Alas, yes, it's true.
One of them was a piece called The Green Fields of the Mind.
Right.
I'm going to, with your quote from that as we take a look at some great pictures from the game of baseball. This is from the works of Bartlett Giamatti. He said, it breaks your heart. It's designed to break your heart. The game begins in the spring when everything else begins again. And it blossoms in the summer, filling the afternoons and evenings. And then as soon as the chill rains come, it stops and leaves you to face the fall alone. You count on it, you rely on it to buffer the passage of time, to keep the memory of sunshine and high skies alive. And then just when the days are all twilight, when you need it most, it stops. Today, October 2, a Sunday of rain and broken branches and leaf-clogged drains and slick streets, it stopped and summer was gone. Somehow the summer seemed to slip faster this time. Maybe it wasn't just the summer, but all the summers that this, my 40th summer, slipped by so fast. See, there comes a time when every summer will have something of autumn about it. Whatever the reason, it seemed to me that I was investing more and more in baseball, making the game do more of the work that keeps time fat and slow and lazy. I was counting on the game's deep patterns, 3 strikes, 3 outs, 3 times, 3 innings, and its deepest impulse to go out and back and leave and to return home, to set the order of the day and to organize the daylight. I wrote a few things this summer that did not last. Nothing grand, but some things. And yet, that work was just camouflage. The real activity was done with the radio, not the all-seeing, all-falsifying television. The real work was the playing of the game in the only place it will last, the enclosed green field of the mind. There in that warm, bright place, what the old poet called mutability does not so quickly come. You can write, my friend.
Well, that wasn't bad.
I'll tell you something.
You read it very beautifully.
Thank you, but you wrote it very beautifully,
well,
and this is Mutual Admiration Society, I suppose, but well deserved in your case. Why not continue to do that for your life? I mean, continue to write, continue to reflect.
I've continued in other ways. I will continue to write about baseball. I think it's harder at this point. It was one thing when you're kind of sitting at your desk in New Haven, an English professor who happened to love baseball, and you would write these things. I think now it's more difficult to get away with it. But I don't intend to stop writing about anything, and least of all baseball.
You were at Tom Seaver's retirement, the number being retired ceremony.
Yep.
And they announced the president of the National League, A. Bartlett Giamatti, and boo! I mean, boo! We hate this guy. Sit down. Boo!
Well, you're
oh, well, I mean, it was pretty vicious. And the thing
I thought it was absolutely normal.
That's what I was going to say. The thing that was fascinating, Bart, was that you said most everybody at a baseball game hates authority.
Right.
And I admire that, you said.
I admire it in the sense that you want to have that mix of emotion, that contest, that feistiness, that release of energy. You don't want anarchy. I don't want brawls. I don't want fights in the stands. But the fact remains, the league president at a wonderful ceremony like that is kind of like the umpire. It's the person you know is necessary. It's the person who is somehow there to make sure that you don't have too much fun. But it's not the person you came to see.
True.
It's the necessary ingredient that somehow means that you're never going to quite soar. I thought it was perfectly appropriate. A guy in a suit gets up. Here's Tom Seaver. Here's Buddy Harrelson. Here's Kuzman. Here's Frank Cash. Here's all this pantheon. And then there's this guy from an office in a suit who's kind of taking up a chair. I understood that. It seemed to be perfectly appropriate.
Speaking of all the ingredients, we think this man has all the ingredients: the wit, the charm, the intellect, and the judgment. We'll come up in just a few moments and talk, though, about the controversies that, as National League president, he had to deal with. One this year, of course. He knows what we're going to have to do. The Pete Rose incident with Dave Pallone. We'll discuss it with Bart Giamatti after this.
Buyers are flocking to Bergen Passaic Rockland Chevy Geo dealers like savings are going out of style. And they well may be, because unless you act now, you won't beat the $1,000 price rise coming next month. Unless you act now, you won't get the option packs, which can save you thousands. They end next month, as do cashbacks and 2.9% financing, more thousands. All this, plus dynamite clearance time deals at Bergen Passaic Rockland Chevy Geo dealers. It all adds up to big thousands. Rush in while savings are still in style.
Who says the gold rush is over? There's plenty on the Home Shopping Club. Who says the silver mines have run out? Eureka! Shoot, there's mountains of silver on Home Shopping Club. Discover gold and silver jewelry for women folk and fellas at hold-up prices. 14 and 18 karat gold. Doggone pretty sterling silver jewelry. Get your precious metals at precious prices. The rush is on. Tune in Home Shopping Club's spectacular gold and silver show.
Howdy.
Everything's up to date.
Stopped you for speeding. You still live on the same address?
11, no wants and warrants on your subject or motorcycle.
I suppose you can remember we have a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit?
Yes, sir.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
Escape with me to exotic places. I'm Denise Austin, and join me weekdays on ESPN for Getting Fit.
The job of president of the National League, not without controversy, certainly this year, the month of April. Pete Rose suspended 30 days by Bartlett Giamatti for bumping umpire Dave Pallone. Peter Passarelli, among others, said that you were just vicious almost in the way that you handed out the 30 days, that it was way too harsh. We take a look back at the tape. Any change now, in retrospect, in your mind as to how harsh that was?
No, it seemed to be a very an episode that occurred in a game with a lot of volatility. A couple of batters had been hit in the seventh inning through no fault of Pete Rose's, in the sense he had no intention to precipitate a very dangerous crowd reaction. Nevertheless, a tremendous crowd reaction ensued that was, according to some people, the worst they'd seen in a long time. Mr. Pasquarelli, to the contrary notwithstanding, in fact, he bumped him twice, once in the back. And frankly, you don't want to have a vicious or outsized crowd reaction. That's a dangerous thing. All of them are vulnerable. Players, umpires, everybody. I didn't like the whole thing. I don't second-guess myself. I leave that to Peter Pasquarelli. He does it superbly and endlessly, and ultimately he'll make his own living.
That issue, of course, is the integrity of the game of baseball, something you must maintain. Then how can you reconcile the fact that your employers, your bosses, have been found twice to be conspirators, breaking, effectively, baseball law? How does that play into your view of integrity in the game of baseball?
Well, they have been found by an arbiter to have violated, in his opinion, a section of the labor contract, not baseball law. It's the labor contract. I suppose, he will assess, or the arbiters will assess damages if they wish to. This isn't something which has come to me. I'm not obliged to go out and supplant. I can't supplant an arbiter, even if I agreed with him, and there would be some disagreements between us as to what I thought I saw and what he thinks he saw. But people who want to, and you picked up some of the other friends I have, people who want to say, well, you know, you can be tough on Rose or over tough and this and that and the other thing, but then you don't do anything you want. My responsibility was to do something about on-field episodes. I'd be delighted to be given the responsibility to do things about off-field episodes, too. You want to make me the arbiter, I'd be delighted to take the responsibility, and I would be, as I hope, even-handed, fair-minded, brilliantly perspicacious, and hard-nosed the same way. But nobody's given me that responsibility.
We have 30 seconds left, and we really don't have a chance to touch on all the issues, the labor issue, the TV issue upcoming. But I guess I can ask you one final question. Maybe in 30 seconds you can answer it. Who's more impressive to you, George Brett or George Bernard Shaw?
I think they are both superb at what they do. And part of the enormous pleasure I have being associated with baseball is I am associated in a very peripheral, but nevertheless associated with people who are the best in the world. That's an enormous thrill.
We think he's going to be a terrific baseball commissioner. Incidentally, I hope it's not prophetic that he takes over the job on April Fool's Day.
I believe it is.
Bartlett Giamatti, great seeing you again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Roy.
Okay.
Terrific.
We'll come back in just a few moments. Robert Rieger on Game 1 of the National League playoffs through pictures, and it was a doozy. Don't miss it after this.
Transportation provided by Continental Airlines, offering great low MaxSaver fares and convenient schedules to over 80 U.S. and 39 international destinations. Continental, working to be your choice to the world.
High school is just like a memory because... So I went waiting to see Caroline, right? No. She wasn't there.
Every time I went to the prom, the girl was taller than me. I don't want to talk about it.
No, I said I'd like to find a dress. And she said, is this for your daughter or for your wife?
It's for my wife.
You know why we don't talk about women? You only talk about things you know about, right?
Levi's 100% cotton Dockers. If you're not wearing Dockers, you're just wearing pants.
Dog pile on John! Yeah!
If you're moving out of town, there is a way to see available homes before you begin traveling. It's the exclusive ERA moving machine, and it lets you see homes for sale anywhere in the country by tapping into ERA's nationwide network of over 2,200 offices. So, whether you're buying or selling a home, look to the right real estate company. Your local, independent ERA broker.
saved the best for last in Game 1 last night. Literally the last pitch winning the ball game for the Mets. Here's Robert Rieger, Game 1 of the National League Championship Series.
I'm lucky. I covered some good games, it seems, last Wednesday in San Diego, then last night. Oral Hershiser, the master for the Dodgers, the scoreboard, the scoreless innings, through 8 innings. And then, as always happens, in the 9th, he faces the best hitter for the New York Mets, Darryl Strawberry. He pitches well. Strawberry fights him off. The count is 2-2. There, the ball in the upper right. He fouls off 4 of Hershiser's pitches, and then finally singles to right field.
Actually amounted to be a double too, yeah.
Greg Jeffries then, who had never faced Hershiser before, scores the first run after 68 innings. And the score is now 2-1. And then Hershiser is taken out by manager Tommy Lasorda. The crowd gives him a tremendous ovation. There is some second guessing there, but they bring in Jay Howell, who hasn't allowed a run either for the Dodgers in the last 18 innings of relief. He comes in and walks Kevin McReynolds. There is Strawberry on second base, the tying run. McReynolds goes to first, and as would happen, Gary Carter comes to the plate, the money hitter. And now, of course, you have the real tension of the game. You have the tying run at second, the winning run. You've walked to first base, Jay Howell on the mound, and Gary Carter reaches for a very good pitch, low and outside, gets a piece of his bat on it, breaks the bat, sends a blooper to short right field. The Dodger outfield is playing very deep. And then
John Shelby
comes in, and I watched the ball in his glove, go off his glove. He dives. He didn't keep the play in front of him. He certainly didn't play it safe. He played it all out. He missed the ball, and he throws to the plate. This is the collision. This is the moment Mike Scioscia loses his hat, his glove, the ball, and everything else.
And the ball game.
And the winning run is there.
Fantastic moments. Game 1. We'll try Game 2 tonight. Thank you, Robert. Some great pictures. We'll tell you about tomorrow's show after this.
This is the nation's business update.
A federal appeals court says random drug testing of transportation workers is a reasonable measure to take. On Wall Street, it looked like a retreat as program trading in futures kicked in, but at the close, the Dow Industrials were up 2 points in moderate trading. And the dollar was off in thin trading on world markets. More Monday on Nation's Business Today, here on ESPN.
Folks, I got a news flash for you. It's the news. In New Mexico, New Orleans, New York, New Hampshire, too. McDonald's new country-style McChicken sandwich. It's unanimous in Washington for special country seasoning. In Alaska's chill or Miami's heat, they love that all-white breast meat. Yeah, it's Coca-Cola and a hot McChicken for the country taste the whole country's digging. This just could make McDonald's famous. New country-style McChicken at McDonald's.
It's great. They fixed up that old truck and went out for their big driving lesson. You know, they'll never forget this day as long as they live.
Here's to fathers and sons. First-time driving lessons and comfortable blue jeans. Wrangler.
Some people think it's crazy to drive a car over 200 miles an hour. But I'll tell you what crazy is. Crazy's driving any car when you've had too much to drink. So please, don't drink and drive.
A message from Anheuser-Busch.
We thank the National League President Bart Giamatti for joining us. Tomorrow, a short chat with another president, former President Richard Nixon, on baseball and the playoffs. Tomorrow on Sports Look. We'll see you then.